and then there's the indie. I don't know if there's another word for it, man. Indie is like you're not following the norm. You're doing your own thing. You're getting the same job done. Some of the indie work is better than the big time work.
Yeah,
But
in terms of talent, right? In terms of
yeah,
talent, in terms of quality as acting,
but if you're not fitting into that little mold, and that's
yeah,
something that that was sort of something that I don't know what your thought is on your own personality on the field, but I was that indie goalkeeper for sure. I was like off the charts, and I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be my own self. I didn't want a coach to come to me, and I had a few say, "Hey, you got to be like De Gea," and I was like, "Are you serious? Like, have you seen that guy? Or you should play a little bit more like Neuer, out of your box." And I'm like, "There's only one Neuer. There's no other keeper that does that kind of." So I said, I can only do my thing, but I'm going to do my thing really well. And so I always tried to stick to like, look, this is my type of, I'm a good keeper in the air, etc. I'm a good keeper at this, but I'm not going to try to be pinging balls down the middle and doing shit out of my comfort zone because that's the mold they wanted. And that was part of the clash that I would run into in US soccer was the inability to adapt to like my insufficiencies, without, coaches are really easy just to dismiss you and say, okay, now we'll just grab this other kid because he's better with his left foot. And that's what we want tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, no, I completely understand where you're coming from, and I think one of the biggest mistakes, in my humble opinion, is that again, people are influenced by what they see out there, and I remember, and I'll quote him, this coach, Marc Dos Santos. He's the coach for Vancouver right now.
I remember him.
I had a conversation with him. I'll go back actually. So we used to play against him. He was with the Ottawa Fury.
That was
And Ottawa Fury was a team that was so hard to play against because they would just sit back, absorb pressure, and hit you on the counterattack. And it was annoying because they went on a winning streak of forever, and they played so ugly. And I knew personally some of the players that they had. I knew those guys on a personal level. I was like, man, you are better than this. You don't have to you can't be an attacking wide player and literally sometimes find yourself on the back line in a line of 6 or 5 because you were pinned back by the opposition. But somehow they would win. And one of my other friends, Rafa Alves, I would tell him, he's like, what are you doing? And he said, man, you know what's fun? I said, what? Winning. He said, winning is fun. And so I started to think, okay, maybe maybe he's got a point here. Okay, it's like I'm gonna play to the opposition because here's what happens. And I'll take you now back to my conversation with Marc Dos Santos. We tied them 0-0, and I go to him afterwards. I was like, man, you guys are really tough to beat, and I think you have better players. And he said, Miggy, I'm just doing the best that I can with what I have. And I was like, that's bullshit. You got better players. And then a year later, I ran into him at the Florida Cup, and it was cool. And I started to talk to him a little bit more about it, and he said to me, hey, listen, there's only one Barcelona, okay? And what happens now is all these teams and coaches want to play, or at least wanted to play, the way Barcelona played, with getting the fullbacks really high and people moving in positions and to create overloads. But then they don't understand that there's a whole other tactical work that goes behind it, And so the point I'm trying to make is that coaches were starting to play in a way that maybe didn't fit the personnel that they had. And so, that was an issue. And that's an issue, I think, with youth soccer, where people are teaching kids to do all these patterns where the kids can't even control the ball or pass it properly. They're missing those points. So, yeah, dude, it's interesting. For me, I was always a more, I guess the jobs that I had were because I was more adventurous with my feet. I was able to, play comfortable passes. I saw pictures because I was a midfield player when I was younger. So I was a number 10. So I could see pictures from deeper down the field. So I was able to break lines with relative ease and keep the team in possession. But I lacked on a lot of things. I lacked on sometimes my lack of concentration. I had a lot of weaknesses, dude. And my biggest weakness, I would say, was my mentality, my lack of focus, my anxiety was a big flaw that I have, and I still have to this day, just in life. And that's one of the things that I try to teach my goalkeepers is how do we become better mentally, and I take my experiences as a goalkeeper and try to identify with them, and sometimes when we're doing drills where they flinch or where they look away because the shot is from really close. And I tell them, it's like, dude, I know what it feels like. I know it's scary sometimes, and it depends on your mental state at that particular moment on how you're going to approach the situation. Sometimes you step on the field, you go inside the goal and you look at the goal and you're like, how the hell is anybody going to score me on this tiny thing? And then you go to it the next day and you're like, how the hell am I going to save anything? This thing is huge. And so it's no secret. And you'll agree with me that the biggest factor of why a player makes it to professional and even higher and really succeeds professionally is their mentality and how they deal with situations.
Yeah, man, that's gold, right? Because you've been through every league in America possible. You've seen every side of football almost, and like it's crazy because it's already such a small percentage that make it. It's the 1%, 0.1, whatever it is. And they say the game is 90% mental. But at what level in America did you ever see a psychologist or a mental trainer?
It's funny you say that because my last year
exactly.
My last year as a professional, I had a psychologist, and I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a quick story that that happened to me. So I was playing with Jackson Ramada. It was my last year. We had an Argentinian coach that was super poetic, very deep, a philosopher, dude. Mm-hmm. And he calls me into his office one time. I was the starting goalkeeper. He loved that I was able to play out the back. He loved that I could ping the ball here and there. But obviously, I would give up some I would say some easy goals because I always knew that my anxiety was a factor for me. Sometimes I wouldn't be patient enough to wait for the strike to beat me. I would just rush out, try to make myself big and hope for the best and not really trust my instincts. And it wasn't that I didn't trust my instincts. It's just that my anxiety got the best of me. And so he calls me, we were in a away trip, and he calls me into the conference room before our meeting. And he's sitting in one of those chairs, kind of like the cartoons when you walk into the boss's office and he's looking the other way, and as soon as you walk in, he spins, right, like the bad guy.
Yep.
And he says to me, "Hey, Miggy, I want to have a conversation with you because I'm here to not only save your career, but save your life." And at that point, I'm like, "Whoa, I think this is going to be deep." And he said to me that he could, basically, long story short, he said to me, "I could see the fear in your eyes. And it's radiant. It's contagious. I can see that it hurts you to get scored on. I can see that the fear you have to get scored on. And that is not allowing you to play at the best of your abilities." And so I said to him, it's like, you know what? You hit the nail on the head. It's like, that's always been, that was always one of my flaws, is my inability to calm myself, to stay calm in situations. And so some games I was able to control that. Some games I couldn't. But that was that. So when I with my coaching style with the kids, we of course do all the technical drills, the predictable drills, because my kids are younger. Most of my kids are younger, so we still have to sharpen up the technical skills, catching the ball properly with predictable service. But it's every single session that I have, we always finish with, you have to make decisions. You have to figure out problems. You have to manage your anxiety. You have to you have to think. And even throughout the trainings, for instance, I have a line of 6 goalkeepers and I'm serving the ball to them, say volleys just to warm up and get their hands ready. And then randomly I would say to one of the kids, okay, if you drop the ball, everybody does 10 push-ups. And they think I'm just being funny and I just want to punish him for having to push him. But what they don't realize is that I'm putting him in a situation of pressure. And I'm putting him in a situation where it's not just you that if you drop it have to do push-ups, it's the other kids have to do push-ups too. And suddenly even their stance to set becomes tense, and they become nervous. And then a lot of times they drop the ball. And I'm like, you caught the ball 10 times right before we did this. And so it's just an exercise for me to show them that the mental side of the game, when there's things at stake, that's when it really matters and when you really have to step up. And so I do my best to try to put them in situations where they have to beat their anxiety, where they have to deal with stressful situations. And hopefully the more of that you do, I have no studies to back it up. I'm no scientist. But the one thing I can do, and one thing I feel, is if the more you put the kids in situations where they have to think, where they have to solve a problem, where they have to deal with fear, with anxiety, with pressure, the better they're going to be as they get older to be able to manage situations like that.
It's cool to hear you talk about that stuff, because it's the same stuff I went through. It's the stuff I see in the youth game. It's the same kind of coaching that, like you said at the end, there's no data, but yet we're still coaching this style that is different. It's off the cuff, right? It's not US sanction approved mental training, but somehow it worked for us in those moments.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's huge. I think about that. I think goalkeeping is about tiny moments throughout the game. Sure. It's about, can you hit the right pass? Can you get that cross? And that 90th minute moment, whatever it is, 3-4 moments, you got to do it right. It's not a 90-minute game for goalkeepers. It's a 10 to 15-minute game split up.
Yep.
But it's the gaps in between that I'm always curious about, because you say loss of concentration. I would say for me, mine would be not being able to control emotion. So I get that save, right? And I feel like I'm on top of the world and my chest is up, arms relax. Suddenly the next thing's up. And then I come down, right? And it's such a hard, it took till my last 2 years of when I had an actual psychologist, mental trainer, to tell me, look, there's the peaks and valleys. You got to float along the middle. Whatever that middle is for you, be comfortable with 5 mistakes, be comfortable with 4 saves. That's your middle. And it almost became like a science to me that if I analyze myself, right, I was the same way. I had tons of anxiety. There's always, and this was funny, we spent, I don't know if you remember, we were at Jackson Armada, a tryout together, and I was talking to our buddy Jose Angulo the other day as well about that tryout. That tryout for me was one of the most anxious tryouts ever. I came in, there was ballers all over the field.
Was.
And in the goal, there was probably 5 or 6 ballers.
Yeah.
And we were there competing, playing preseason games against MLS clubs. There was talks about all this MLS team action. And it was out of my comfort zone for a weird reason. I had come from Sweden. I'd come from some decent areas, but somehow I got into my head that this was bigger than I've ever experienced.
Right.
And so I started getting that peak way too high. And when you think the mountain's that big, you're going to go, man, I can't climb that thing. It's an Everest mountain. But when you look at it and you go, no, here's where I am. Here's where the peak is. Here's where and you start measuring yourself accordingly, then you're able to sort of develop your own, what we call the zone, right? That little area where okay, I messed up, but that wasn't a common mess up. That you're able to analyze it a little more detailed. But I think, that tryout, man, that was stressful because I remember. First of all, the place we stayed. I don't know if you remember that place. Yeah. It was like 8 players per apartment. It was, we were kind of just stranded out there, and it was funny to kind of have all that talent there and I don't even feel like we used half the talent. It was
no, it was an interesting situation because for me, I was there because I had just finished with Orlando City. I didn't continue with Orlando City, and it was a stage in my life where, I was with my girlfriend, and I will say this about my career: I was always, and my family still to this day tells me, it's like I never got out of my comfort zone during my career. Every opportunity that I had, it was given to me. It was handed down to me. And I was content with it because I've always been a very, I don't want to say complacent. It's not complacency. It's just, I'm happy with not a lot. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when you look at when I was with Orlando, the team is huge. We're really good. I touch the ball. Probably I'm one of the guys that touches the ball the most. Playing out of the bat. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm happy, man. And the place is awesome. The crowd, the supporters have been fantastic. To this day, are still fantastic. So 2011, I get goalkeeper of the year. We won the championship, and there's opportunities for me to go on trial, as requested for some teams, to go and try out for this MLS teams. But I was like, there's talks of this team going to MLS in the next few years. I'm happy here. My girlfriend, I love the city. I don't need any. I don't need to go. So I stay. Next year there's another opportunity. We won a lot of things with Orlando, but I was always just happy, and so I didn't really.
Was that like a complacency? Was it a fear of like going outside the norm?
So the problem is when opportunities presented themselves, and to this day, when opportunities presented themselves, I had something good to lose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, I'm good with this. And that's something that, it's funny because I was talking to a friend just yesterday, and I said, you know what? I want to learn how to play the guitar. And he said, why? I said, because I've always wanted to play the guitar. And it's something that does not come natural to me because I've already tried, and it's so freaking hard, and it takes a lot of patience. And he said, but the biggest thing why I want to learn how to play the guitar is I want to prove myself that I can do something out of my comfort zone. Because I've never been in that situation. Sadly, I've never been in that situation. I've always been good enough for a certain situation to come naturally, but I've never really put myself in a situation where I had a lot of stake to lose. And so the only one time ever, so that time it was a trial for a lot of you guys, but for me, I was already signed.
Yeah.
I went on a trial for 2 days, right?
You were the first sign, weren't you?
I was signed already. I was the first signed player, and for more money than I ever made in Orlando, dude. And so the way that worked out is when I left Orlando, I had opportunities to go. I had guaranteed contracts with other USL teams, and they reached out to me from Armada, and I go out and said, "Look, I already got guaranteed contracts in situations that were pretty cool. It's like I'll go over there, but I'll give you guys two days." The guy said, well, we're not really signing anybody right now until January or whatever. It's like, look, well, that's all I have. If you guys can send me, I'll go there for 2-3 days, give me an offer. And he's like, oh, well, just come down. So I go down there. I kill it, dude, the first 2 days. Why? Because I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Because I already had a contract. And then I remember Dario Sala, the guy comes, gets out of it, super intimidating guy. He gets out of his SUV, black Suburban. They tell him about me. He's like, and he comes out and he says hi to me in a way that, not a super friendly way, just like a, hey, what's going on? And it's okay, go to the goal. I want to do a bit. So he starts shooting against me, putting me in situations. He says, I say this, grab the ball, sidewind it to that corner, and then this. Dude, that was the most unbelievable 15 minutes of me training. I mean, I was pinging balls with my left, with my right, saving everything, teasing him. And then he said, okay. He said, we're going to play soccer golf around this soccer field, where you're like kicking the ball to hit the post and then the other post and the other post. Yeah. When we finish this soccer golf, we're going to have a contract and we're going to make a decision. I said, let's do it. I have nothing to lose. So I go, we're playing. And so he sells me this like amazing situation, offers me all this money, blah, blah, blah. And to me, again, I'm like, okay, my girlfriend is 2 hours away. I'm still in Florida. I love Orlando. I love the people in Orlando. This is a great situation. So I signed. So I was already signed when you came and you guys came. I was the only player that was already signed. Coincidentally enough, dude, 2 weeks later, a team from Mexico, Atlante, reaches out to me through a friend because they had lost their number one. Oh, no. And they offer me an opportunity to come over there, and I tell Armada, and they're like, nope. I was like,
Oh.
you haven't paid me a penny.
Did they even mention a price? No.
No, they said imagine how we're gonna look when we've announced you as our first signed player and you leave in 2 weeks. So I understood that part, but they were looking after them, not me. But listen, no regrets in life, right? All I'm saying to you is that wasn't even a trial for me.
Yeah.
The only trial that I ever went to was to go to Mexico to Tigres for the first time.
How was that?
It was funny because I had been invited to go to play in Mexico many times in my younger career from Texas, because I moved to Texas when I was 14, 15. And I didn't have a green card for a long time, dude. So teams would come play, their third division teams would come and play, and they put a good team together. Modesty aside, I was kind of always the best little goalkeeper in the town. So I would go in these teams, play against these Mexican teams, and they would oftentimes, not all the time, oftentimes they would be like, hey, who are you? Come try out for us in Mexico, third division, second, whatever. But I'd be like, I don't have a green card. I'm not taking my chances. Because if it doesn't work out, I can't come. And it just brings me back to the whole situation I'm telling you, is maybe the reward was huge, but the risk was also big, and I wasn't willing to take that. Especially at that age when my parents were in a situation where they weren't looking after me. My mom was sick.
That's not even a risk, man. That's a life.
That's exactly. So when I was 22 years old, I get my green card after another whole long story, dude. And I reached out to one of the guys that had invited me for Tigres. I was already running my own company, dude. I was balling at a young age. I started my own company, and from all the things that I learned, I had a job. So I called the guy, and I said to the guy, hey, do you remember me? My name is so-and-so. You invited me to come try out for you like 4 years ago. And he said, well, I don't remember, but you can come on your own dime. And I said, okay. So I go down there. Why did I go down there? Because I had nothing to lose. If it didn't work out, I come back to my great, great life. So I went over there, dude, and my brother lived, I had a cousin in town in there that lived there in Monterrey. My brother was in Mexico, in my hometown, which is 2 hours away. So I told him, yo, I'm going to go try out for Tigres. They're like, all right, let's go party. So I was going to try out / party. I get there, and they send me to this place. It's like a community field, and I'm training with 15-year-old kids in a shitty ass field. And I'm like, man, I knew they weren't going to take me serious. So I get there. I get in goal. I got my nice, gear. I'm coming from the U.S. I got to live, you know what I mean? And so after like 3 or 4 saves, one of the guys says, who are you? What are you doing here? And I said to him, look, this is the situation. Ricard, this guy sent me. I'm from the U.S. He said, okay, look, just step out, go sit down. Okay, let me make a phone call. So then he makes a phone call, comes back to me, and he says, hey, tomorrow you're going to go to El Barrial, which is – no, El Barrial is from the other team, because I went to train in Monterrey too a few years later. You can go train to where the first team trains. So I'm like, all right. So the next day I go, and I'm thinking I'm training with the first team. The first team was there. But no, they sent me with the academy coach, goalkeeper coach. The academy goalkeeper was the guy that trained all the goalkeepers that weren't the first team keepers. Does that make sense? That guy belonged to the club, because when a new coach comes in, sometimes they'll bring their own goalkeeper coach. So I go train with this guy, and I'm training with the U15s, U17s, even U20s, but it's already, it's already there. All the kids are geared up in Tigres gear to nice facilities. And I have a tryout, dude, and I do well. And the guy comes to me at the end, and I'll never forget this, dude. He says to me, I look at you, and it makes me feel bad. And I said to him, why? Do I suck that bad? And he says to me, no, because you have all the things that are natural that I could never teach you, but you're old, and you are missing all those technical things that you should have been learning since you were 15 years old, 14 years old, in an academy system, and over there. And I'm like, yeah, I understand. So, yeah, I think it was a big blow, but I was like, I get that. But then here's what he said. He said, we're still going to give you an opportunity to go do preseason with the team. They're in the beach right now. They're in Sinaloa. And he's like, you can go on your own dime, and if the coach likes you, then it's up to you. So I called my dad, and I'm like, hey, this is what's happening. He's like, well, do it. You've always wanted to play. You got nothing to lose. If it doesn't work out, you can come back. I said, sure. I get on a flight, fly over there. Dude, I'll make a long story short. I get there, and there's like 5 or 6 baller keepers that I've been watching on TV. And I've never really had proper goalkeeper training up until that point. And these dudes are like, diving and, spinning and catching the ball. It was unbelievable. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? But I trained, and I was making saves, unorthodox saves, but I was making saves. I was passing. I mean, it was all right, but I still didn't think I was at their level. So then, long story short, weeks go by, players are getting cut, and I'm still there. Another week goes by, players are getting cut, I'm still there, and I'm thinking they either forgot about me or I might actually have a chance here. It was December 23rd, right? They gave the team the 25th, the 24th, the 25th, and they were supposed to come back to train on the 26th. And I'm like, okay, I got to find out what's going on because I got to go home, and I got to know if I got to take all my stuff with me or can I leave some stuff if they want me to come back? And I go to the coach, dude, and I said, hey, profe. And he turns around and he says, ¿Qué pasó, Manuel? He calls me Manuel, dude. And I'm like, all right, I know how this is going to go. And I said to him, okay, Miguel. He said, oh, yeah, Miguel. And he said to me, I said, hey, well, I want to know what my situation is because, I need to find out if I can go home. And he says to me, oh, they didn't tell you? It's like, no. It's like, well, I would like you to stay if you want to stay. And at that point, I should be happy, right? Well, I was more anxious to see if I could get a flight home so I can go spend Christmas with my family. And long story short, I couldn't. I was stuck. There was no flights. There were no buses, nothing. I was stuck in the clubhouse with an Argentinian guy and a Brazilian guy. And they brought us a chef, cooked some meats for us. And that was the first time I spent Christmas away from my family. I called my sister, and as soon as I hear my sister, I start bawling, crying because and she says to me, this is what you've always wanted, and this is what it takes. So that was the first sacrifice I ever made to play professional soccer. And I ended up staying. I signed my first professional contract with Tigres Primera A, and I stayed for a season and a half. And then, other things happened. I went to play other things, but that's my first contract. So that was the only time really I was ever in a trial that I made, and I didn't have anything to lose, dude. So to summarize, in my career, if I have any regrets in my career, it would be that I never put myself out there in a situation where I had something important to lose. It was always kind of presented to me, and it was a matter of making a few little tweaks in my career, and that's it. Even coming to Orlando for the first time, it was a big decision because I had a company, I had a business and everything, but I knew that I could go back to that business. So it wasn't like I wasn't really losing much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was really losing much. And so, listen, I'm so happy with the way things turned out. I have an unbelievable job, an unbelievable family. I really mean it, that I wouldn't change anything. But there is a part of me that wonders what it would have been like to have taken a bigger risk and been more adventurous with my career.
That's funny because I feel like the opposite. I feel like, not an opposite, but in the way that was, if there was a risk to be taken, I was attracted to it like a fly to the light. Yeah. I was like, and it started with my second contract. My agent he had called me and he said, hey, and I was, 20, 21, coming out of college. He goes, David, book a flight to go to Bangkok, Thailand next week. And I go, well, where's Bangkok, Thailand? I don't even know where that is, and he goes, just do it. There's contracts there. And, he's throwing out numbers at me of contracts. I said, okay. He said, but trust me, you'll get games as a keeper. Yeah. So I said, okay. I booked the ticket with the $1,000 that I had left in my account. I booked it. hop over to Thailand to the craziest place. And I'm telling you, we get to a field where it's no grass. It's like mud and gravel, and the goals are made out of bamboo sticks. And there's a community water cooler that's literally just filled with water with a bunch of cups that you dip your hands in. So
Wow.
everyone's dirt and hands and grease are getting in there, and it was the craziest thing. And I don't know why I stayed for a month trialing, but at the end of it, there was a lot of shady agent stuff going on over there, which happens. But my agent wakes me up at like 1 a.m. and he drives me over to the owner's house, right? And I'm like, what are we doing at the owner's house at 1 a.m.?
Right.
And he's like, oh, this is normal. He doesn't have a lot of time, etc. He's giving me the whole line. So I said, okay, I don't know any better. I'm in a foreign country, you know the rules. So we get to this guy's house. They're talking in Thai. I don't understand a word of it. The owner goes out. We're sitting on his porch. He goes into the back room. He pulls out a duffel bag of cash, of Thai cash.
Yes.
I'm talking duffel bag, and I'm sitting there like, oh yeah, here we go. Gonna get paid. They were talking about, decent sized contracts, 5, 6, 8,000 a month, plus housing, all that good stuff. And he hands me my contract, all in Thai, of course. And I see the number of the salary, and it was lower than I had thought.
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever, I'm new, I'm young, sign it, work my way up. But then I saw another number at the bottom, a big old fat number. I said, what's that? And my agent and the president, like in unison, were like, oh, no, that's for a different player. And at that point, the president suddenly spoke English. And they start dismissing that cash, right? And I saw it like it was clear as day. My agent pulled out about half the stack of cash to his side, pushed about half the stack to his side, and they said "Kapung ka," thank you very much. And that was the agreement to negotiate my salary down for him to keep that little bit of amount. So everyone got paid. I didn't get any of that big old stack, but the salary was okay. But it was just so, I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
I was in this, of course, I always look back at my career and go, man, I wish there was times I would step back and go like myself, pin myself against the wall and say, think about this for a half second. Like, you're comfortable. There was times I had good contracts and I was there for 1 or 2 years, and I start thinking, where can I go next? Can I go to the next level? I was in Thailand. I said, can I go to Europe? And then from Europe, I said, can I go to Canada? Can I go to America? And I wish at one point I would have just said, yo, just be comfortable. Maybe play at a team for 5 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
Like, what would be, and that's something that at the end of my career, of course, I wish I would have, started to have that consistency, because then the opposite side of always taking a risk is that it costs, man. It costs to move. It costs, like you said, having family, having loved ones there.
Yeah.
You got to give up. People don't realize being without your family for the first time, that takes up to 1 year to 2 years to get used to.
Yeah.
Like,
No, for sure.
not birthdays, Christmas. You're used to everything being close by. At least be able to send a package. When I was overseas, sending packages would take 2 months, So it was like.
And that's another part. And that's another part that I think people don't talk about a lot. And I talk about it with, with some of the people around me in my work, because these are kids that younger kid. I call them kids because they're very young, in their early 20s, and they are oblivious sometimes for no fault of their own to certain situations. They think that soccer players, professional athletes, just have it, and it's great. And I tell them it is great once you get to a certain level. And even when you get to a certain level, there's a lot of things that you have to sacrifice. There's a lot of things that you guys don't see. And it always takes me back to a video I watched a long time ago with Marcelo Bielsa, this Argentinian coach, and he's giving a talk in a little circle to his team in France. I think it was Marseille. I think that was the team. I could be wrong, but I think that was the team. And basically what he said to the guys was like, listen, when you choose to become a professional player, you choose to sacrifice happiness, because there's a lot of decisions that you have to make to do this, because you may have money, but you don't really have time to spend it. You can be away from your family. You don't really live in a place long enough where you don't know if you're going to be here next year. So you don't even really have a home, and you think of all these situations when you're away from your family. I missed a lot of birthdays, dude. I missed weddings. I missed, baptisms. I missed so many important things. I missed my wife's birthdays. I missed Mother's Day. And so there's a lot of things that people sometimes don't realize that you make a sacrifice. Well, by the way, not nobody, everybody has a choice, right? And a lot of the professional players really choose, their careers over those situations like that, because the soccer career is shorter, and they think that you'll be able to do all those things after, and that's perfectly fine. It's acceptable. Everybody has a choice, and everybody lives the way they want to live. And when it comes to my personal situation, although I'm like, sometimes I wish I would have taken a bigger risk, I also know that I am happier with less. And my goal as a professional was never to find the glory and make $1 million contracts. That was never my motivation. It really never was. And so maybe that was a little bit of a factor why I never really tried to put myself out there, took opportunities to go on trials with Major League Soccer teams where there was a situation where where it was a really good possibility that, there was a hole that they needed to fill with somebody like me. And I guess it never caught my attention enough, because I was like, so what? So I go there and what? And I always wanted to play, dude. And I was fortunate enough that for the 10 years of my career, except for the very first year in Mexico, where I wasn't a starter, I was a starter for every team for the teams that I played for. I played most of the games, and that was good enough for me, and I was happy with that. And when it comes to my anxiety, sometimes I suffered a lot during my games. The mental side of it. Sometimes there's anxiety, so I suffered, and I was a victim of results. Where if I didn't do well on a Saturday night, on Sunday, I'm not really going to that pool party that my friends were talking about, because I feel like I didn't deserve it. Because I was so hard on myself. But I just think that, everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that. And, I have no regrets on the way my life went and career went and where it is now. But, going back to the whole mental thing, dude, it's 100% the truth that you can be you probably trained with some highly technical and talented players. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you'll tell me, maybe some of those guys were never starters in their teams. I certainly did. I trained with some really talented, technical, strong physically, but you would play a little small-sided, and I'd be like, oh, there it is. Like they would come on, we'll do the drills, and they were ridiculous, flawless in their technique, catching everything, and they would play small-sided, and their decision-making was where they struggled. So, I do think that the mental side of it, your ability to make good decisions, how you train your brain to see situations that you could potentially see in the game, help you see pictures that you are somewhat prepared for, because you can't never be 100% prepared for them. That's the key for me. So that's my theory. That's my philosophy with my trainings is I want to make you better technically. And while I may not have the funnest drills, the fun comes from our intensity, our connection, right? Or our intention to become better friends as coach and goalkeeper and student and as lovers of the game. But my biggest attribute or the biggest thing I can give to the kids that I coach is putting them in situations where I have been, and putting them in situations where they have to get out of their comfort zone and think and deal with pressure. And that for me is giving them a better opportunity to hopefully have a better career. But again, it's not science, it's not proven. I don't know, it might be, I don't read enough. But I think that is the key. put the kids in situations where they have to struggle, where they have to think, and they have to make decisions for their own. Don't make robots. Don't do everything predictable, because that's not the game. You're teaching them, you're delaying the response time when you do everything predictable at training and practice. 10 balls to one side, and the kid is moving before you even strike the ball. For me, that's teaching them bad habits. And then you see the goalkeepers during the game that are guessing because their mind is telling them, I've seen this situation before, and they start moving. And so that's my biggest take. I don't know what if you agree.